Hello everyone, my name is Anuj Bhargava and I am the CLeaR Fellow 2017 from Faculty of Medical Health Sciences. My project involved developing a lit review web tool. I will give you a little bit of sort of background about how I came up with this idea, why I needed to do that, why when I told my stage 3 students that they have to write a lit review, the unenrollment numbers went up rather than more students wanting to enroll into the course. What were the challenges? What did we think about? How did we come up with what it meant to me as a CLeaR Fellow from 2017? And what were my what did I take from this journey? So sort of listening to student voices. So I look after a paper called MedSci 311, which is cardiovascular biology. Semester 1, 72 students. We used to have 64, but obviously with the work of lit review, it's gone up to 72, I hope. And one of the assignments they have to do is 10%, which is quite substantial piece of work they have to do, which is write a lit review. And these are the students who've used to of writing lab reports, but they've never stepped up to writing a literature review, and they don't even know what a literature review actually is. And what we tell them, we make life a little bit more complicated. We tell them, go and look for a current hot cardiovascular topic. And then, where do I go find that? Where do I get that information? How do I go? Because I don't even know where to look for that information. The information I look for is either I go Google or I go Facebook. But clearly that wasn't going to be. It's even the GPA requirement for our course is 5, so the students who are enrolled into the course are quite high achieving, and it's even a big step up for our high achieving students. We give them a little bit of piece of information. This is what you have to write, 12 font, margins of 1.5 on either side, and a big sort of description of what one needs to look at in a literature review. And despite that, there's quite a lot of, can I come and see you, or can you hold my hand emails, and a lot of conversation of office hours time. So one of the students last year suggested, why don't we have a website which tells us how? I mean, how difficult is it to make one? And I said, okay, well, let me try during my CLeaR Fellowship year to sort of think about what is it that I really want from the student. Am I clear about what I want from a lit review? Do I actually know myself what a lit review is? I should know. And sort of putting those sort of ideas into a piece of paper was my journey of CLeaR Fellowship 2017 to develop a web tool. So the journey began with a paper prototype. I looked at my emails, fossiced through the email conversation with the students, put them together into a paper prototype, and then a draft web tool with the help of Library and Learning Services, Frank Lemons, Stephanie Cook, and Liz Hardiman, who were just amazing help in terms of coming up with the ideas of what can be done. And we used Course Builder as a sort of a framework because Canvas was just brought in at that time. And then we had an initial evaluation with some of my colleagues and as well as postgraduate students within the faculty to see whether we were embarking on the right journey. Is that how you write a lit review? And then got on to this sort of a second iteration of the website, which was then we had a group of students have a look, and they said, well, we've got a lot of text. We need to have a text and a self-assessment. If I don't know, if I've just read the piece of work and I haven't really tested myself, I won't retain it. They wanted a bit of animation. They wanted emojis. They wanted some sort of a playfulness on the website. So we added all of that. We beta tested with stage 2 and 3 students early this year, and then the class of 2017 MedSci 311 was subjected to the literature review website, which looks something like this. There's a poster outside as well, if you want to have a look. There's a link to the website. And this is how I sort of, myself wanting to see how I would write a lit review. It was really sort of, in a way, challenging for myself, coming from a clinical background, and writing wasn't my thing. and to be able to then process my ideas. Where would I start? How will I go about finding information? How do I do critical reading? Do I know, as a student, do I know how to do critical reading? How do I write that piece of work? How do I put this information from different sort of papers that you're asking me to read or I'm required to read? And how do I reference that information? So that's what we started. But before we started, one of the students suggested that it would be quite nice to know, in the privacy of my laptop or my tablet, that I need to, those questions that I might not want to ask you, but I can get the answers straight away, which would be, ask yourself a question. This is Kieran, who was in the 2016 class. Obviously, that's not his photo. And he asked me in an email that, do I just review a review? Is it what you want me to do? And so we put it into a sort of a question. Do you review a review? Do you get a review which is a good review, and then you review that review? Is that okay? Or Ali asked that, is it good to put all the sort of research ideas into some sort of a theme? Is that what you want us to do? Or as Ryan asked, if I have a big bibliography, everyone will be impressed, and you've got to give me that 10 out of 10 which I need. No, that's not right. And then going on to Ellie, who sort of said, well, I'm reading quite a lot of information, and what you're suggesting is, what I'm finding is that there's a lot of information saying that actually works, but then I've also read some papers that say actually it does not work. Should I put that in? Will I be marked down? And so that's sort of an idea about that you need to sort of keep thinking on both sides of the story and to write your lit review. So that is what we got the students to think about before they jumped into writing the lit review. And then sort of explaining in the next sort of pages, web page, as to what is lit review? Why are you doing this? What's the importance? You're going to be researchers. You've got to write grant proposals, you've got to write articles, you've got to write dissertations for your honours or PhD. You need to have that sort of a level of being able to vet through the literature and make sort of sense. It's sort of finding the unknown or trying to put the piece of the puzzle. And as just to illustrate that, we have got a bit of a text at the top and an activity that gives them some sort of an idea about whether they're going in the right direction or not. And then sort of coming up, what do I do? How do I write a lit review? What is a research question? I don't know what a research question is. Can you please make me one? And that sort of is an idea about a research question, an idea. What is the importance? Where are you going with this? What's the sort of impact on the sort of global scale? And then going back again into that big sort of, it's an iterative process. It's sort of going in a cycle until you actually are ready to answer that question or you come up with a question. So we give them an idea about, this is an original, and if you're not from Faculty of Medical Health Sciences, apologize. There are different treatments, targets for cardiovascular disease. This is a topic that somebody asked me, and as you can see that this is quite broad. You can go anywhere in any direction, but we also show them a revised version. So hopefully by the end of this talk, you would all know about nitrous oxide synthetase, and is very, very useful in the long-term treatment of cardiovascular disease. So this way, I think students have got more focused, refined, and has got the ability to sort of critically look at sort of literature, if you like. So that is, we're giving an idea about how you come up with a research question. And once you come up with a research question, do you just go away with that, or what do you do? So you go and you identify the topic and you identify the key information from that question. And then you get a broad idea of the topic by either going to Google Scholar or somewhere you would like to go, and then you dissect that question. You tease out what it is. Like in the case of eNOS, is that what's the role of eNOS? Where is it found? What happens in pathological conditions? What are the current therapies? Why is that going to work? So sort of kind of really sort of dissecting the question that becomes the focus question that the students have to answer a lot later on. So this is, we then move on to how do I get that information? So information, primary research article or a review article, you've got the question, you go and look for information, Google Scholar, and it comes up with another sort of piece of article, and then they can, there is who's the author, how many times it's been, related articles they can find, or where it is cited, to going on to doing their researches or searches on databases, and if they're not getting enough hits, if you like, or a problem with their search, then it's rather sort of giving them suggestions about synonyms, and if they're getting too many, it's sort of maybe applying some limits. So it's sort of practical tips on how to get that information that is required to writing that lit review. And then anatomy of a paper is, should I take everything that comes up, the first hit I get, do I put that? Or should I look at whether this is accurate? Is this a journal of neuroscience, or is it a journal of global health awareness in South Africa or something like that? So looking at the accuracy of the paper, looking at the currency, looking at the authority and the purpose, sort of these sort of things to make it very explicit to the students, so that when they look at the literature, when they look at the paper, they actually understand what it actually means. And then going on to the anatomy of the paper, which is was quite surprising when I looked at the hits on this page on the Course Builder site. It was really the most that the students were finding, that they read the paper and they didn't really understand what it actually was. So there was an abstract, there was an introduction. Should I just read the introduction and then move on to the discussion, or should I? So we've given some sort of tips about how to write, how to read, and not everything has to be read, but look at sort of be more specific and tailored in the approach. And then sort of writing your lit review, sort of how to organize information, maybe perhaps a Excel spreadsheet with all the themes, writing all the information they've got, and then going back to that focus question that they've obtained from dissecting the research question and answering those questions, to just sort of going beyond summarizing and describing, to actually synthesizing that information, putting it all together that kind of flows to have that introduction, the body, as well as sort of a piece of critical thinking or demonstrate that critical thinking. So this is what, there's a few more pages which I have removed, but it's available on the website that gives them students an idea about what are the steps to take to write that lit review that is required, not only for this course, but for other courses that require that sort of assessment. So the litmus test earlier this year, which is I think in April, May, once they had submitted their assignment, I gave them some time to reflect on what is it that you've done this website. So I did a lecture on how to write a lit review. In fact, I also did a Canvas conference, which I recorded. The students can go back and review it to see and show them the website and different parts of the website. And then I gave them a questionnaire which was modified from the University of Auckland e-learning questionnaire. There were 11 questions and 2 texts, and without a promise of pizza or anything, or an iPod, they don't exist anymore. We had 45% of the students voluntarily participated and gave time and gave feedback. And one of the things that was really worrying me was, is it logically organized? Was it in a way that really suited their learning? And the message from this is that yes, most of them agreed, and also that you can't please everybody. There were 2 students who did not agree with the logical sequence of information, but such is life. And then I found this literature review useful for my 311 assignment, and it was very sort of positive feedback in terms of they found it really extremely useful. They got lots of information and things that they could have to send an email to ask or search around. It was all available on that website. And some of the selected comments, which I thought they did write quite a lot. Students can write if they want to, and especially when it comes to evaluation, they do. And so they did find that it was a good stepping stone, which was reassuring. They did find that it was good with blended learning, be able to do it on a Canvas conference, show them the way how it is to be done in terms of different pages of the website. But they also wanted not just the ENOS example, but they wanted more examples, which is what we are hoping to do in the next iteration of this website. So what is next for this website? I'm using it in my semester 2 stage 3 course, which has got a similar lit review writing assignment. It's going to be used in semester 1 2018 for incoming honours students and PG DipSci and postgraduate students. It's going to be implemented in other courses within the FMHS, which has got lit review writing assignment. It's a collaborative design and with the great help from Library and Learning Services. It's hopefully going to be promoted through the Library and Learning Services website. And then IUPS attendance, which I got to go to Brazil to present a poster which is outside. So it's been really, really very, I learned a lot about myself in terms of writing, in terms of organizing my ideas. So for me, CLeaR Fellowship was for creating something that was rather bespoke for the course, but it was still useful in other courses that might require. It gave me a sort of an idea about how writing and how to organize my ideas, which is I did. It gave me a sense of collaboration that I wasn't doing alone. I had help, immense help from Library and Learning Services, from my colleagues and my fellow fellows, CLeaR Fellows. And then to give it back to the students, to contribute to the students and help them in their learning. And at that point, I would like to invite my invited guests, which are students, and they're not in my course, so there's no conflict of interest. They have been promised a pizza. And so Rose, Callum, and Wills, who were in my course last year or last semester, will sort of reflect on what it was to do this course website.
Hello everyone, I'm Rose, I'm a third year physiology student. And for me, it was extremely daunting and overwhelming to be asked to write on a topic that you're not told what it is. So to have this resource, it saved me a lot of time, because as a student you don't have a lot of time, and if you go down the wrong path and on a tangent that is not following the expectations of your assessor, that is very frustrating, and yeah, you do waste a lot of time. I felt that the resource helped me become a really independent learner, because it is very easy just to flick someone an email, but that tutor or organiser of the course is getting that from every student potentially, and that can probably be quite frustrating. So it was very good to have an online tool that you can do in your own time and constantly refer back to. Yes, that's how I used it.
Just hold them both. Hi there, everyone. So I think, to repeat what Rose said, to start off with, academic writing from an undergraduate perspective is terrifying. You're told you're doing a lit review, you're told pick your own subject, then they'll clear it or something like that, and it's got to be 3,500 words, and there's a reference limit, and you look at it going, oh my goodness. But interestingly enough, this particular assignment was one of the biggest surprises of the entire year, because it ended up being one of the most enjoyable things that we did when it came to assignment-wise, because the resource that we provided ended up turning almost every literature review out there into an exemplar that we were able to go through and understand. Because it had that step-by-step process, we were able to really look through and see, oh, I see how this fits together. This is what leads on to that. And by that understanding, it enabled us to get a real good notion of how we were supposed to put our own together. And I think that's really important, for us, and because I'm hoping to go on to postgraduate, is that I'm trying to get skills, not just knowledge. I'm trying to understand how I write these things and how I should be putting them together. And that knowledge right there I found to be really, really good for me, because it enabled me to go and pick a subject that actually I ended up being very interested in, because I was really able to understand how the reviews came together, how the journal articles and everything linked together, and able to put that into something that I was actually very proud to present when I submitted it in the end. And I think that was really the best part of the resource that we were given, is that it allowed us to be independent learners. It allowed us to sort of really understand the purpose of the assignment itself and to grow our skills in that fashion. So, thanks, Anuj.
Kia ora, everyone. To sort of iterate what Callum and Rose have said, I totally think that this resource was invaluable to not being absolutely terrified by the idea of having to write something independently. In terms of undergraduate science writing, it is very daunting to be presented with all of the resources available on Google Scholar and Scopus and be asked to synthesize that knowledge into something accessible and easy for people to understand. One of the things that I guess people often forget is that undergraduates, we don't know everything that there is to know, as surprising as that may be. When we first went on to Anuj's tool, one of the things that really stuck out to me was, I think you presented it on one of the slides, was that you can click on the bottom of a paper on Google Scholar and see all the papers that have cited that paper. That was something I just didn't know existed. And when I've written lab reports in the past, that's been a real issue, is you know that there's this fantastic paper written in 1973, but you don't know any of the work that's come after it. So to be able to have access to those little tidbits of knowledge that people experienced in the field know about, but haven't necessarily communicated in a clear way like Anuj just put together, that was invaluable to our ability to put pieces of work together that we're proud of. I was very, very pleased with what I was able to put together for my literature review in that course. I was able to share it with my family and be like, look at this cool thing I presented, and to have help and support and guidance through that was exceptionally valuable. So thank you very much, Anuj.